It was based on the Nexium cult.
What's that?
The Nexium cult. Allison Mack, the actress from Smallville with the blonde hair, she and you might remember from 2019, 2020, she was caught up in a major lawsuit about some Hollywood sex cult where they were branding the women. And this
Bro,
documentary.
who's got time for that though?
Well, when you're being chased by the flock, son. But seriously, like, this profiles this cult leader, and it is one of the best, most unnervingly normal people who wields neuro-linguistic programming, which is, for background, Tony Robbins does NLP, but he tells people what he's doing. And it's only meant to be used on yourself. You're only supposed to use neuro-linguistic programming on yourself to help unwind trauma.
Before you go forward, can you give us a working definition of NLP so I can try to understand what this is?
Absolutely.
Neuro-linguistic programming, but those are three words I understand separately, but not together.
It's when you use language to get into your head to reprogram your trauma.
Okay.
But pickup artists have keyed in on this, that you can use it on other people. Use language. Like one of the best examples of this is Darren Brown. You guys ever seen the street magician Darren Brown?
Yeah.
He is phenomenal. And he did this one thing where he creates a word track, and he's pretending to be a tourist in an area with a map. And he meets these people and he runs in. Hey, I'm looking for directions, and he talks really fast. And in the middle of him talking to them, they're listening, and they pull out their wallet and give it to him. And basically, he writes these word tracks where it's basically two conscious conversations written over each other, but the way his intonation and inflection works, you don't hear the second one. He's just asking for directions. And he's telling a story. He's like, I was trying to get on the subway, and the guy was like, give it to me now. Give me your wallet. Give me your wallet. And you're like, I'm never going to do that. So where was we going over there? And by the time, he's just a fast talker. And by the time he's done, the listener's handing him this wallet. And then the guy realizes what he's doing. He's like, give me my damn wallet back. And he shoves him and walks away. And he's like, I'm sorry. And then he picks it up again. He says, I'm sorry. I'm running this documentary, and I'm showing people how you can use language and how you can use language to that. And the guy's listening again and hands him the wallet again. And the guy's like, wait, what the heck? And so there's these extreme practitioners of NLP that can use language and like I said, pickup artists do this a lot when they're really well trained. And there's also some touch components. In psychology, it was meant for you to use on yourself to deprogram trauma. And this cult leader ends up, Keith Raniere, ends up using this in this Nexium cult, and he's just wielding it. And there turns out to be these shenanigans, but I'm watching it, and it is a profound documentary. I highly recommend. It's completely off track of Web3 and crypto bros, but
so, yeah, everyone who's just tuning in, this is exactly what happened with FTX a couple weeks ago.
That's what I was going to say. And then the guy took off mask off, and he was Sam Bankman-Fried, and the guy was like, "Oh, give me my money back.
Give me my Binance. Give me my BNB back." And he's like, "No,
no. I already sold that to a hacker. My bad."
So talk to me about FTX, boys. Like, what's our take on what happened? We've got this timeline on in front of us, but like, Jay, you kind of seem to be the most keyed in on some of these dynamics. I mean, we're all talking about Alicia Joy. She's like, yeah, these guys.
What's up, Alicia?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
so Jay, give us the rundown.
I'm just looking at the full timeline myself, but I've been like 100% bought into all of the conspiracy theories that are going around. Just
the lizard people convinced him.
Yeah.
Jay buys conspiracy theories not when they're on sale. He'll buy them when they're double price. He's like, that's got value. That's got value. Yeah. I'll get the family value. I'll get the 3-year pack.
That's funny. So like the Mount Shasta conspiracy. So like, tell me, what's the main conspiracy that really resonates with you about this?
I mean, the one that makes sense, I guess, is the CBDC thing, where it's FTX falling, like its rise and fall was manufactured as a way of almost like a false flag type of operation, where now the US government has a reason to forcefully implement CBDC.
From the beginning, like before the rise.
Well, FTX is only like 3 years old, so, you know, it was conceivable that somebody could think of that 3-4 years ago and put it into play.
Okay, this was so in your estimate, there was some government organization, call it the SEC or call it the Office of Cash Comptroller, the OCC office, which runs maybe say for example the cash, the SEC or something to that effect. They pump funds or like clear the road for Sam Bankman to kind of build out FTX.
Turn a blind eye, yeah, essentially, like to be, and I'm definitely talking about things that I don't have no information about at all.
That I'm making up as we're talking.
Nah,
Jay, that's the sign of a that's the sign of a good conspiracy. When you know about 10%, but you're 90% passionate about it. So keep going. This is good.
But here's some of the other things that I've been picking up along the way. Here we go. So
wait, time out, Jay. You're picking up along the way. Yeah, I went out to get my newspaper this morning, and I saw a guy, and he said, FBI owns Friedman, and I was like, obviously, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like, where did you pick these things up, and along what way?
From my information gathering. Alicia is with me. I appreciate you. Like, I know the audience is with me 100%. My information gathering, my investigative duties. So apparently, on the FTX executive team, there were a couple of people who actually worked in some of the regulatory offices. CTRC, I forget what CTRC means now. But
really?
basically they had, so basically they were like poached by FTX to join the executive team.
Okay.
And they were like, the inside people basically sending the information back and forth, like, leave us alone today, whatever. I don't know, whatever they were doing on the inside. But that was their inside guy. And so they had these opportunities to sort of go unknown, and that's what really led to the company is only like 3 years old, so that's why you would imagine a 3-year-old company can.
So if there is a concerted, organized conspiracy, organized enough, clear-minded enough to say, for example, do this with FTX, wouldn't it make sense then that in terms of like chess strategy, a gambit of planting these sorts of people and roles in multiple exchanges and just waiting to see which ones blow up? I mean, they're just trying, like whether it was FTX or any one of the others, like crypto.com is as established, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more so. And they've got their own arena too. And like, I mean, so do you think it was all about FTX, or do you think that this organizational level of organization is embedded in multiple, and this was the one that popped?
Nah, like it feels to me like if it is true, if the regulatory companies did infiltrate FTX or even just create FTX from the very beginning, it feels like it's just that one thing, right? I mean, granted, the executive teams of these companies are like maybe 1,000 people, so it's not, like you can imagine that 1,000 of them are having conversations with each other, right? Like that's not that far off. So
interesting.
So wait, Grant, sorry, Jay, what is the overarching thing? Can you say the narrative and then fit the FTX situation into that? Because what I understand, what you're saying is that the U.S. government okayed, either by planting people inside of this thing, they basically okayed the FTX to blow up, so that way they can come in and say, regulation, regulation, regulation. We should be the ones in control. And now we should be the ones in control of CBDCs. Now I have to watch Dan Brown, but just exactly. I'm actually going to leave this, Patrick, and go YouTube that.
Darren Brown.
Yeah, make sure. So Jay, is that your overarching? Is that where you're going?
Yeah. It feels like that, right? Because even you even heard the same type of rhetoric coming out of what's his name, I forget what his real name is. They call him Mr. Wonderful. What's his real name?
Kevin O'Leary.
Kevin O'Leary. He invested in FTX, and he was talking about it after the whole like collapse, where he was saying that, hey, they definitely need more regulation now.
So, sorry, Grant. I feel like you're about to say something. This is interesting. And the thing that I've heard is that there is a link between Gary Gensler, who's the SEC commissioner, and SBF. And if you just search, so I'm just on Google and I just search and I Google Gensler and SBF. And these are the things that come up. 4 days ago, fortune.com says the FTX debacle makes SEC Gensler look bad again. Cointelegraph, this literally came out 15 minutes ago, says thousands petition for congressional investigation of alleged Gensler links to FTX. Fox Business, 22 hours ago, SEC Chairman Gary Gensler met with head of FTX months before collapse. So clearly there is a thread here. I just cease to believe that the U.S. government was that good. And I mean, these are people that, couldn't figure out. I mean, it can't, like, the government is run really inefficiently. We know this. And so I cease to believe that that's the case. However, do I think that the government somewhere in a back room is like, FTX blew up. Now we can like regulate the life out of crypto and insert our CBDC? Maybe that's a plus. But just because they're excited by the prospect of what's happened as far as maybe being able to put some regulation on it and maybe impose their CBDC doesn't necessarily mean that they were catalysts. And that's where the conspiracy, I think, starts to waver. But we're going to find out because, like I said, there's this really interesting loop between Gensler, SBF, and everything else that's happening. Told me our government would do that. While I believe that they want to do that, like I said, I just think the government is really, really inefficient. So, I mean, they couldn't even figure out how to do our taxes in the pandemic. They just like freaked out and they just like couldn't figure it out. So to like do this, I don't know. I also think that this is just kind of a rising tide. Like this happens every single time crypto goes up as much as it does, and then it crashes, right? People get, as Warren Buffett says, the people who are over leveraged, when the tide goes out, you start to see that they were swimming naked, right? And I think that's where we are. Coinbase, if you just look at Coinbase, Warren Buffett, good old Warren G. Coinbase, hires like it's going out of style. They were just on the corners in San Francisco just picking up people if you had a MetaMask. They're like, oh, come work for us. Then they ended up having to lay off. Then they have to lay off all these people. We're seeing now crazy layoffs in especially the crypto industry. So anyways, I'm going to just put that out there.
I wonder. It's only a conspiracy if it's true.
Well, and it's a conspiracy theory. Yeah. It's not a conspiracy theory if it's accurate, right? But I guess my thinking is this. I agree with you. I don't think any one party in the government is smart enough for this. And I think they're smart enough to know that they're not smart enough. And by that, what I mean is this. I find that I do believe in a layer of the world, the controlling elite, if you will. And I believe there's two segments of that. There's the money elite and there's the power elite. And I believe the power elite often happen at the government level, and the money elite, who are actually not money elite, they're just in the power game, but at a different level. But I would consider them, just for ease of labeling, the money elite or the private elite. I believe all of them know that humans are so erratic. There are specifics that are very difficult to engineer, but there are trends that are easy to engineer. If you all remember from last week, Jay said, "Oh, this was so predictable." And I was like, and I challenged him on it. Like, what do you mean? And when he did extrapolate, well, maybe not FTX itself, but if we believe that there is a correction coming, and I do believe there is a correction coming, right? And Jarrett, you constantly call out that we're going to end up anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000 Bitcoin. Okay, you have to ask yourself, well, what drives us there? Well, a down market. Okay, it's beyond a winter. It's a down market. It's a crash. Okay, well, what would cause that crash? Well, the only thing that causes a crash like that is some institution has to collapse. And some institution, which one? Well, it doesn't matter which one. In principle, an institution has to collapse and we have to lose faith. There has to be some fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and it has to be an established one. So that narrows down to about half a dozen, maybe 5 or 6 of the major exchanges or institutions will have to collapse. So let's label them: BNB, Crypto.com, FTX, pick one of the, and then a few of the, a Coinbase, right? Like one of these biggies have to collapse. And it's like, okay, from that regard, one of these has to go. So I think the power elite and the controlling elite, I believe they understand that level of the game and they gambit one of them going. And so then our government positions its bills for the CBDC and says, hey, it's inevitable. One of these are going to go. And how can we push them all kind of over the limit? And then we'll push our agenda forward as soon as it happens. I think that level of statistical analysis is easily, or not predicted, but prepared for, if that makes sense. I would believe in that level of conspiracy, but I don't know if I believe that like someone's like, okay, here's the chess move. Let's
Stacey.
You
see Steve? You see Steve? He's new.
Yeah.
Let's get him into SBF. Let's teach him about crypto. Get him in there. While he's in there, he'll horse whisper SBF and be like, hey, what you need to do is you need to take all of the client funds and cover Alameda because it's done. It's not illegal if you get, unless you get caught. Like that to me is like, it's too much. Yeah.
But he does have a profile, right? He is a developer who has, like, developers or geniuses like him have God complexes, but they don't have the chutzpah. So you could imagine that he's got the profile for someone to go, you're brilliant. Why don't you push this thing over the edge? I actually think the smarter one is CZ. If anything, if you were to come to me and say the conspiracy was that regulators said, listen, we know that FTX is over leveraged. We all can look at the books and know that they're out of control. Yeah, but we don't have anything on them, right? Why don't you start dumping your crypto? And that sets a series of dominoes. Go ahead.
This is a much better conspiracy that I think holds more water. And they're going to say, all you need to do with your platform is tweet, hey, I think FTX is over leveraged. They don't have the liquidity to cover a run. That's all he did. That's literally all he did.
We're going to dump some of our tokens.
Yeah.
And then all we have to do is make intentions that we're going to buy them out and then withdraw. Which, if anyone's tracking, was the exact playbook of Elon with Twitter. If you could actually write cash for it, if you follow through with the deal, make it work. If the deal falls through, who cares? Like, okay, it's a no-lose scenario when you can play at that level. And I think that was the same playbook that they did here.
Yeah, I'm waiting for more stuff to come out, but I just think this thing is ripe. It is fertile land for conspiracy theories to just be grown on. And like Jay is outside every day planting his seeds and watering it, with his 90% passion, 10% information on this. But
I don't know if Tristan is saying down market or watch out. These guys are red flags. I don't know.
Probably both. I think that the Not Crypto Bros logo should be a red flag.
Yeah, go ahead.
But Jay, okay, so what do you think? What else do you think is going to come out that will have you saying, "Hey, I told you so"? To me, who's doubting that this is a larger government conspiracy, like what's something else that you think would fit within what we already know?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like it's one of those things where it's already happened. It's already in motion. It's not like we can do anything to stop it. You can just maybe like observe it as it happens. The other conspiracy theory that is connected to what you guys were saying on the Binance side with CZ, is that I think a lot of people saw that play, that him tweeting about FTX and then selling off FTT was obviously going to be to their detriment.
Yeah.
The thing that people might be saying is that some people have actually connected SBF with Terra Luna, with the downfall of Terra Luna, and so CZ may have been trying to get back at SBF for Terra Luna in that tit for tat, and then that pushed the dominoes over.
So why would CZ wanting to get at SBF for what happened with Terra Luna? Was he like boys with Do Kwon? Did they play like online poker?
It seemed like there was some tweets like that earlier on where CZ was saying that the reason why he was talking about FTX openly is because um basically it sounded like he was saying like he wanted to get back at them because they were dealing dirtily in the industry.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's interesting because that's not my take on FTX at all. I thought FTX was pretty good when things kind of fell apart. They came in and they backstopped BlockFi and a couple of other smaller like exchanges and other projects. So that's not my take at them at all. And there's just been so much stuff that's come out about SBF. You know, it's almost like when someone dies, then you start to listen to their music. And this is so true with Sam Bankman-Fried because there was this thing I saw yesterday and it was like, he was on with Sequoia Capital and he was trying to pitch Sequoia on FTX and they ended up investing like a couple $100 million in FTX. And after some intern or some aide was like, yeah, that entire call, Sam Bankman-Fried was playing Call of Duty or like playing some video game. And he was just like, yeah, we want the world to be better with money. Everyone, the unbanked, save everyone. And he's just like playing Call of Duty. So as things come out, I think it paints a picture of a guy who's not a mastermind, who is actually more likely to have been a pawn, but it's to whose pawn? Because I don't really think anyone benefited from this happening. I can't see who benefited yet from this downfall. If CZ were to have bought it, then I could see a benefit because now he gets this huge brand underneath his wing. He can liquidate, backstop anything, figure it out. But I think they must have looked at the books and in about 24 hours said, nah, this is too messy. There's no value we can add. We don't want to tie our brand to this thing that's failing. So I think as more stuff comes out, it's going to continue to paint a picture of SBF as a guy who I think had all the right intentions. Honestly, I do feel for him. I just think that even with the right intentions, you can make very bad moves. And with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility. And it doesn't always sound like he was the most responsible.
Yeah. And I want to know, what now. So we'll back up to answer your question. Who benefits? The only beneficiary I could see is anyone who had put options on anything FTX. So there's that.
Ooh, I know who benefits.
Okay.
The government of the Bahamas. People in the Bahamas came out on top because
now,
they all got made whole, right? That was the only place that they said that we're going to make everyone whole, right?
But did they come out ahead or did they just get their money out quick?
They got
getting your money out is coming out ahead in a bank run.
So what now? So like, how has this affected people's actions, activities? People are abandoning DEXs, right? They're going to self-stewardship. So tell me, like, how are you guys
People are
acting?
abandoning DEXs now? Why?
Yeah, for sure. No, sexes. You mean sexes. Centralized exchange, not DEXs.
Well, what we know is DEXs, like there's few DEXs that are actually not centralized, right? Like,
sure.
Like we called Binance a DEX for the longest time now. We don't call it that, but
who did?
Like plenty of people, because they were just saying DeFi, decentralized. Oh, it's a crypto exchange. It must be a DEX. And it's like, no, the nuance now is coming out quite clearly that if I can't pull my money out, it's not a DEX. So I know that centralized exchanges, these terms are changing, but I guess the real thing is to self-stewardship. People are pulling themselves out of all sorts of exchanges, right? And they're managing it themselves. You did something crazy, didn't you?
I have a stat on that, and let me try to bring it up. But I do think that people are going to be. So I had money on BlockFi, and I knew BlockFi was going to be affected. So I got money off BlockFi. I got my Ethereum off BlockFi, but then I still had some coins on that I wasn't able to get off because I had them whitelisted. And what I should have done in that moment was sold them all into Ethereum and then got them off. I didn't. So I still have some Ethereum on BlockFi, which looks like it's going to be blocked there for some time. I also haven't been able to find my ledger. So I was showing Grant this, Jay. I don't know. I got a new one of these, and I think everyone should go get one of these bad Larrys, a little Nano. This is the Nano X, but has Bluetooth. But just go get a cold storage and get some stuff off exchanges. There you go, buddy. There you go. Oh, is that your seed phrase written on the front there? Is that what that was? Yeah.
Backup number 2. I've got multiple of them.
Exactly. I actually need to get one. My father's going to get one as well. I just think you want them off exchanges right now. The thing I was looking for was going to be backing up, and I don't even know how to do it here was going to be backing up what you just said, which is that people are taking their money off exchanges at alarming rates because no one trusts anyone right now. And I can't seem to find that, so I will look it up. But that is definitely something everyone should be doing. You should have some of your money, if not probably 80 to 90% in cold storage, unless you're like buying. But as the market goes down, this for me is only the beginning. More and more stuff is going to come from this, and a lot of people are going to be tied to this. Did Sam Bank get a free home in the Bahamas? He probably did, probably next to Raoul Paul's little villa. I had tweeted that I think it's ironic we couldn't see this coming because his last name had Bank in it. But Grant said no one could have seen this coming, and or that it was exactly FTX.
It was yeah.
But I will say this is how I think it changes, and I'll find that data later in the show. This is how I think it changes crypto right now in the narrative. And I'm currently working at Mercy Corps doing crypto philanthropy and trying to get people kind of attuned to this new idea of crypto, right? Like this is how the younger generations are going to give philanthropically. This is probably how, people in 20 years are going to be exchanging all value around the world. And there's 3 FUD narratives, right? We know these. I'll say them every single time I can say them. One is that it's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. One is that's only used for illicit activity. And the other one is that it's really bad for the environment. What Sam Bankman-Fried did by moving customers' money to cover Alameda losses is a Ponzi scheme. That is moving money from pot A to cover pot B because pot B needs the help. But then when you come back to pot A,
I heard, but I didn't know that was verified.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I mean, that's what I've read on multiple sources.
10 billion, right? They moved 10 billion.
It was a good amount of money, and that is a Ponzi scheme where you're just trying to move your money around to pay off people. And that to me is really unfortunate because that allows the fudders to say this is a Ponzi scheme. Look, crypto's a Ponzi scheme. Look at what happened to FTX. When really that is a one-off decision that was made by this company to have done that. Crypto itself isn't a Ponzi scheme. Bitcoin isn't a Ponzi scheme. It's very, very liquid. You can go sell and buy anytime. Now, if the exchange doesn't let you do that, that's different than the network or like the actual idea or the theory of it. And I think that right now, it seems nuanced for us, but for someone on the outside, it's just one and the same. Oh no, crypto's a Ponzi scheme. Look what happened. Oh, you can't get your money out. Oh, because they were using that to pay off other people. And then actually they decided to pay off people in the Bahamas, right? So it's not good momentarily for crypto because I do think that it fulfills one of these narratives. But how are you guys dealing with it? I'm going to bring up those numbers I saw too on exchange.
And I noticed Brian Naughton had posted something from Glassnode about them.
This was
okay. I have it up.
Okay, please share the data.
So it was Brian Naughton, who's a blockchain maximalist. Please follow him on LinkedIn. He's been a good fan of the show now and again, but he is his own heavyweight in this space of his own accord. Check him out. He posted or reposted from Glassnode. It said, following the collapse of FTX, Bitcoin investors have been withdrawing Bitcoins to self-custody at a historic rate of 106,000 Bitcoins per month. This only compares to 3 other times: April 2020, November 2020, and June and July of 2022, where people are just pulling money off. Now, I don't know how this compares to the influx of Bitcoins to exchanges, but right now the outflow of Bitcoins from exchanges is historic at 106,000 Bitcoins per month.
Which is a lot. And I don't see that. I don't see that that's going to slow down. I think as we go deeper into the depths of this market and things continue to be topsy-turvy, and the ripple effect, literally, I guess that's a bad word to use in crypto, but the butterfly effect of this FTX fallout, I think is going to continue to touch people directly or indirectly. Like, for example, my money in BlockFi, right? That's not it's not FTX, but it's so indirectly that it is going to get tampered with. So
is this the precipitating action? Like, I think you said this about the CBDC. This is the kind of beginning domino for the government to push the CBDC. Is this the nail in the coffin for regulating?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what they need, right? The industry is basically calling for them to come in and do something. And you've got, we're fresh off the heels of an election. So, new mandates and all that. Like, even though I don't think crypto was a big deal going into it, but it's an easy win for our politicians right now. And, Ethereum is nice and green now. So that's not a bad thing for them to hold.
I do think that to pass legislature, at least in the United States and in most countries, it takes a while. And a lot of this stuff has been cooking from 2020 on all throughout 2021. And now we're coming to the end of 2022. So if they pass legislature in February and March and people want to tie it to FTX as far as regulation, they can do that. But also realize that this has been in the works for a long time. I created a podcast in summer of 2021 talking about regulation in crypto. I mean,
Yeah.
this has been coming for a long time and nothing happens in the government quickly, which the only way I see regulation really coming down is if it comes from an executive order and it's kind of pushed. Once again, this is very US centric comments. Every country will deal with this differently, but in the United States, it takes a very long time for the politics to be worked out for this for it to like come to fruition. So
How do you think this sways? So, connecting these dots. You mentioned public opinion, the layperson, how they view this. It's a Ponzi scheme. Jay's talking about this might be the thing that pushes towards the CBDC. Does this make the public less trusting of any crypto other than let's just get a digital currency and call it a day?
I think it makes them less. Yeah, Jay, go ahead, please.
I thought you know that the old saying, like, no news is bad news. You know, like people are gonna hear about it and like it's gonna be bad for a little while, but then there'll be another bull run and everyone's gonna be making money, and by then more people hear about it, and so they're willing to give it a shot. Well,
I always thought the phrase was "no news is good news."
No news is good news. That's the phrase. But in Jay's world, no news is bad news because he loves drama, apparently.
What?
Well, I mean, is it a statement that's ironic and it's a play off the original phrase "no news is good news"?
Yeah, because the statement, Jay, I'm pretty sure is no news is good
I've
news.
never heard it the way that you said it though. That's what's different. Isn't it that it basically sounds like that there's no bad news. All news is good.
Oh,
news.
there's no such thing as bad press.
There's no such thing as bad press. Yeah.
That okay? I have heard that phrase. I guess no news. We're mixing our metaphors.
I mixed it up then. I guess
he said no news is bad news. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I tweeted this the other day, but this is my new stance on FUD, and if I could get a tattoo, I'd do that. It says, why crypto FUD doesn't matter. If someone has no FUD and invests, it drives short-term adoption trends. Great. They're going to tell 2 or 3 other people in the next 6 months, I guarantee, if they invest in crypto. If someone has FUD and doesn't invest, it keeps short-term prices down. So either way, it's a win-win, short-term adoption or lower prices. This is totally my outlook on FUD, and I don't get triggered anymore. I used to get like really disappointed in people and they'd be like, that sucks, like whatever. And I'd be like, really? You don't want to be like curious and look into it, at least like try to learn about it? And now I'm just like, whatever. You know, people are, this is just a tech adoption. That's all this is. Everyone got on Facebook eventually. And so
I agree.
But if I could actually, along these adoption, I want to go back to something that we've talked about at length on this episode, which is look at what the developers are doing to understand future trends in crypto. And Ken Cato had posted something he shared a post from this guy, Nitin Kumar, on LinkedIn, and I just sent it to you guys on LinkedIn if you want to pull it up, but it says developer activity on public blockchains, and it is insane. So it has Hedera, Moonbeam, Algorand, Cardano, Avalanche, Polygon, Near, Solana, and Ethereum. And if you look at the peak where all of these were being kind of developed on, it's November 2021. And then it shows November 2022. And you'll see that the largest decline was Avalanche. The least amount of change was Hedera.
Interesting.
And the highest devs was Ethereum at 30,000 in November of 2021. But if you look at the difference between November 2021, which is a year ago, till now, while Ethereum has gone down, it's maybe gone down 75% of the amount of devs. But if you look at Solana, and I'm just doing eyeball math because it's a bar chart, it's probably gone down
80 plus,
85, 80 plus. And I think a lot of that has to do with the network just conking out. Imagine if you're trying to build on Solana and the thing just conks out and you're going to get VC funding that day and those things just happen to align. This is obviously a theoretical, this is a hypothetical here, but I think long-term you're like, well, couple things have happened since November 2021 to now. Ethereum's gone from proof of work to proof of stake seamlessly. It didn't have any problems with that. It will introduce sharding in the next 6 months. In that same time, we've seen Solana have more and more network issues, just blackouts. And we know it's super centralized. And we're not sure if that's really the way that the world wants to go. We talk about the centralization and decentralization pros and cons on this show a lot, but I thought that was very interesting because Solana is around $15 right now, which is 95% down from its all-time high. So as an investment, it's an interesting one to throw whatever money you can, spare. But I'm interested to see what happens with that because that's what we were using as like a bellwether to tell us where we go in the future. So I wanted to share that with you guys on air and pick your brains about what, other reasons why that may be happening and more. Hedera. If Hedera's only gone down by 1%, that means people are continuing to believe in it, continuing to build on it. And I know that it's been rumored to be part of the ISO 20022 package. So if that were to happen, it's also freakishly down. It's down 90% right now. So just throwing those things out there.
The price is down 90%, but the development has held relatively steady.
It's only gone down 1% in the development activity.
I have been stacking since we mentioned so many episodes ago that it was part of ISO, and that's launching sometime this month. I don't know if it's going to be reported when ISO 20022 is adopted in the US, but I have been stacking for transparency. Hedera, Algorand, some others, but the 6 ISOs, which there's only 2 listed on this chart you sent over, which is Hedera and Algorand. I think Ethereum plays a role, Stellar plays a role, XDC plays a role, XLM, which is Stellar, and IOTA. But that is interesting, and I don't know much about the Hedera Hashgraph protocol, and I'd like to know more, but it is apparently a strongly peer-reviewed, probably to the same tune, but without the drama that Cardano's been peer-reviewed. It is, I think it's been peer-reviewed by MIT quite a bit, is what my impression is of Hedera Hashgraph, but that's as far as my knowledge goes. That is very interesting from Ken Cato, and I want to know what this means for Z-Blocks and what they're working on and why this matters to them, because this graphic is provided by them. And so I'd like to follow up with Ken Cato. But his point is this, I think. Not everyone did continue developing in the bear market. Not everyone's developing. And I know this from crypto Twitter, man. Everyone jokes about everyone going quiet and keeping their head down and developing. They have bent over, dropped their drawers, and kissed their butt goodbye. They are literally crossing their fingers that the market returns in time while they're still motivated to finish their project. Can we name one of the projects we've been touching before? Anyone that the three of us have touched before we went that were actual build dev projects that are still working, being developed? Other than content creators are still going.
I mean,
but what's being devved?
Something that's being devved on top of a chain. I don't. There's some metaverse projects out there that I've been looking at that are still being like worked on, but just in general, most things from Web3 are crushed by the market because a lot of them were built up on hype. Most NFT projects, and I have no problem with saying most now because I called out in May that 99% of them were going to be dead by 2024.
Yeah.
Most of them were just people seeking a return. And they weren't bought by people that actually cared about whatever utility was offered. Part of that is because I don't think the utility aligned with whatever that community wanted. And part of it was because I think the utility wasn't actually utility. And when
someone says the utility is the community, it's like, whoa, don't reframe the phrase. Utility means something specific. You could say the value I'm getting from it is X, Y, and Z, but don't call that utility. The utility is the art.
When someone says that to me, I just go through the roof because for me, utility is something that is going to allow me to do something else. I don't know what that is, but like if you gave me the Mona Lisa and sent me into the wilderness, I don't feel better, right? If the utility is like a helicopter ride out of the wilderness.
Say that again.
The utility is definitely the art. You don't
Look,
think that at all?
utility can be the art if it's done well enough. If it's
Yeah.
done
No.
by an artist thoughtfully that plays a part of a larger story and narrative and collection and tied to a brand of an artist that is well known. But most of this stuff was just created degeneratively on, just code. Just okay, we'll give Jay this type of hoodie, we'll give Grant this type of hoodie, and then we'll say it's rare. Like that's not utility.
Wait. Time out. Logically, the
Mhm.
word utility has a definition.
It
And
does.
it's a function. Now I know that like a lot of revolutions, the first thing they try to do is redefine terms. And the thing that I will not let happen is us redefine terms. Now, I don't mind a natural evolution of terms,
Mhm.
but there's a power like when people are often redefining terms like utility, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to reframe the conversation to put themselves back on top. This
Mm.
thing is useless and has no value, but the word utility has value. So if I can anchor aesthetics and don't hear me wrong, I think there's massive value in the art. I think there's massive value in the
Mhm.
art, but I am not fooled that there is utility in the art. There's except unless there is utility in art.
Hey, Victor.
What's
What's
up,
up,
Victor?
Victor?
There's
Victor is
utility.
also going to have an opinion on this as an artist himself.
Oh yeah, that legit. Here we go. Yeah, and Patrick jumps in. Seriously sucks that legit an
He's
NFT
totally
project
right.
took his with the NFT. I totally agree, and
Totally right.
especially like brands like I do not own an ape or a punk, but I do believe that Yuga Labs really stood a chance, and still kind of does, to not utility, but to build a media brand that was around the art, and to let the gaming follow the art and the swag follow the art. I believe that was good and valuable, but I'm not fooled that it was utility.
I
Utility
think you're
has a
right.
use.
Yeah, for me, utility is function. That's
It
it.
is
It's
function.
100%. And I do think that there is in NFTs, there's a conflation between utility and value. Does that art have value? Yes.
Value.
But once again, if I take Mona Lisa with me into the woods, what function does it give me? Like that to me is the thing. There
Yeah.
has to be some like other thing that it allows me. It's like it has to give me leverage to do something else, like a lever. That to me is like a utility. Like what is this allowing me to do that I couldn't do before?
I'll give you an example of art that does have utility.
Please, yes.
Conspiratorial art, like Dan Brown. Like the guy just alluded to, like
Darren Brown.
no. I mean Dan Brown, like the books, the novels, right?
Oh,
When
sure.
when art actually is encoded, because the art itself is a mystery, a puzzle box, something that leads to something else, then the art does serve a utility. But art in and of itself, I don't believe. To me, it's sacred and holy. Like art does something to people, but I don't believe it's utility. I believe it's a transcendent from a regard. But I guess I don't want to be a complete dick on this. Like some art has utility, but in so much that it does something else other
Jay,
than art.
where are you on this?
I think art has utility. You know, it, it the way that we think of NFT art is very two-dimensional. Pun intended. But you think of it as a PFP.
Mhm.
But what if the art were, exclusive access to a waterfall that no other human being has ever seen other than the people who own this NFT? It's art.
Then but exactly that. Then the 2D image that we see is just a ticket. It's just the front end, it's not the
I might need to correct myself. I just pulled up the definition of the word utility. Are we ready for this?
does it
Eh,
say Grant's wrong?
yes.
Usefulness.
The state of being useful, profitable, or beneficial.
So the profitable, that's where the NFTs throw this thing, right? Like
That's where the art. Well, no, I mean even a Picasso, right? Picasso's profitable and beneficial. and useful. And then some other breakdowns of this is the adjective, something that is useful, especially being able to perform several functions. And so I might have to stand corrected that not only NFTs, but art in general, it could be profitable, could be beneficial, could be useful.
But that gets back to value. Like for
Yeah.
me, the profitable is value, the beneficial is value. Like I can use it to trade, therefore it's beneficial to me to keep it. It's going to appreciate in value, and I can sell it, therefore it's profitable. The useful, when I think, and maybe that's just because I have a very kind of small view of what utility is, but I think it's just about being useful. That's it.
That's interesting. So useful. Well, I mean, and in the case of NFTs, they are more useful than 2D art, to Jay's point. When you're dealing with 2D art, I mean, you could argue philosophically there is a use, but it would be a flimsy argument. But the argument does become three-dimensional and more dense when you do look at NFTs from this definition. So I guess you could say the art is the utility. I guess I just wish there was nuance to it instead of a bunch of crypto boys going around and going, hey, man, the art is utility. What does it even mean? And it's like, well, I guess technically now that we've broken this down, I kind of have to agree, yes, but I guess I wish for more from it. In all honesty, I guess.
And I think that that's what Jay was getting to. If the art is part and parcel of a larger experience, then I think that that works. And this is where I actually think NFTs are the best, is where you, and Victor came on More Than Blockchain, we talked about this, but I like something phygital, where you have the physical mixed with the digital. And this could even be like Jay said, going to see a waterfall that no other people can see because it's on my property and it's exclusive access. I do think that because NFTs really came more, quote, mainstream within crypto in 2020 and 2021, a lot of places were still locked indoors or like still had COVID restrictions really when they started to, drop, come out in 2020 and 2021. So, we still were kind of getting back to society. So I think a lot of them were very digitally focused, if that makes sense. Like, you get into my Discord. Well, when the bull run happens in 2025, ideally there's not a global pandemic, Discords are going to be less important because you're going to be like, no, I'm going to New York to go to this warehouse where I can only get in to this rave with this NFT,
Interesting.
And so I think as the world becomes, I don't know. I think the best NFTs out there are the ones that will give you access in IRL, period. Like that's it. I mean, that's why a lot of people hold the apes. Not only is it social signaling that you own an ape, but like you get to go to some of these parties with, A-list celebrities and top athletes.
Yeah. I don't think I own any. That's not true. I do own a few Access Pass NFTs now that I'm thinking about it. And they're actual art communities that together they wrote a book and they published a book. They do gallery shows and they are about the art. Sketchy Labs is what they are, I think is the main one.
That's a cool name.
Yeah. I really, and it's all sketchbook stuff. That's what they are. They're Sketchy Labs. That's interesting. Okay. So where's it going? What's next? What else can happen this week? Like who's falling next? Mr. Wonderful and Mark Cuban are calling for regulation now, and these guys have been fanboys of crypto. Are they actually calling for regulation, or are they predicting regulation?
So I want to call Kevin O'Leary anytime I get. That dude hated crypto in 2017. He said it was fake. He said all the FUD. He hated it. He had an epiphany in 2019, got in early in 2020 into this bull run, and now is the biggest fanboy of it. So I want to just make sure I always say that when everyone talks about Mr. Wonderful. But Mark Cuban has been in on crypto for a long time. Victor just posted something on Phygital, and I'm going to look at that in a second. But Grant, this is a really good question. What happens next? Because Jay put in the chat that Michael Saylor is also calling for regulation. So
yeah, your boy. What the heck?
Yeah, my boy. Jay, what do you think about regulation? Do you think it's good, bad, it's going to happen anyways? We might as well get used to it. Is it acceptance? Is it going to how's it going to help? How's it going to hurt? Or is it going to be a neutral for overall crypto growth?
Yeah, I think in most markets, you need to know what the rules are. And what we've seen from FTX is in crypto, basically, there are no rules. You can take your customers' money and move it into your private trading account and do what you want with it. And hang out in your apartment in the Bahamas, so we the regulation is going to be top of mind for a lot of people, and so it's inevitable at this point, I think.
Grant, what are you thinking? Is it inevitable?
Yeah, I mean, long ago, I had a good conversation with a friend this morning, and he said, he called me out for being like, "You're all about that crypto," and I'm like, "I'm all about freedom, bro." He said, and he asked me, he said, "Are you projecting that this FTX thing is going to cause us to regulate, and if we regulate, we won't be able to be anonymous in crypto anymore?" I said, "I don't give a shit about anonymity in crypto." He said, "Well, aren't you afraid they're going to come get you?" And I do not buy into the conspiracy theories about like putting us into FEMA camps, mass control, manipulation. They want their taxes and that's it. And for me, I don't care about decentralization as a philosophy. I care about decentralization as a technology. I think it's a superior technology. But as a philosophy, is it superior? No. Why shouldn't I have like a principle here? I am so absolutely focused on freedom. And the thing about freedom is you can't be a fan of anything except freedom itself because the situation changes constantly. So for me, my definition of freedom is my cash flow, my unearned income exceeds my expenses. That's it. And if my unearned income can exceed my expenses, that requires me to be nimble in my in the tools I use. And so crypto had a window. I loved the wild, wild west of early crypto. I believe that door is shutting immediately. I think that we're going to see that door shut. So I'm not going to cry my milk and spend another minute hoping that that window perpetuates. I've made my money. And what I need to start thinking about is what is next and how I'll make my money then. I believe the regulation is coming in the form first in terms of ISO 20022. I believe that will lead the way to the CBDCs, and I believe that there will be some crossover in the tokens that manage those two things. We've talked about that in previous episodes. So what am I doing? I'm tilting my crypto portfolio to hold those. Not financial advice, but this is my philosophy on I want financial freedom. I'm not hung up on any one of these principles. Mainly because I don't think I can do anything about it. Do I think like government control and top down is all wrong and our government's goofy? Yeah, we could talk about the flaws all day long, but if we're talking about money and we're talking about freedom, I'm not gonna fight that. There's other things I need to fight. So for me, I believe it's absolutely coming. I'm not welcoming it with open arms, but I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to admit it's coming. I'm going to adjust my investment strategy accordingly. And it's just like I would in the real estate market. The real estate market shifted. We've got to shift our plans. We were just having a powwow this morning. How are we going to shift our strategies? And then we realized actually, like our strategies don't shift that much, even though interest rates are doing what they're doing. My point is I'm not a fanboy or fangirl of any one way to make my freedom, and therefore I have more optionality. So for me, I say it's coming. I ain't going to fight it, and I'm not going to like die on that hill because I think people will be left holding the bag. Like I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned, and I'd love to hear your take on this, Jarrett. I know that we talk about like the limited supply of Bitcoin and the current demand, and supply and demand determine price. The demand is increasing for now. But when I asked the question earlier, and I'll pass this question to you again in this new context, when I passed the question to you earlier of like, does the public, the layperson, they've had tough time onboarding. They are sick to shit of hearing about JPEGs as the answer to all things in the world. They're not sold on that. Now they're watching weirdos get involved, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's no longer his title. If you actually look now at all his social media, his title has changed from officially real estate investor to literal Bitcoin investor. And so there's red flags everywhere. Now I've heard you compare. We've talked often about the difference between real estate and supply and demand of real estate versus supply and demand of Bitcoin. And we actually crunched some napkin math. The supply and demand curve of real estate is absolutely predictable, but the supply and demand curve of Bitcoin is not, because the supply is, but the demand calculation could shift in a minute if we outlawed it, or in America, or if the public was just, guys, it looks really sketchy and I've got a CBDC. Isn't it the same thing? We know it's not. We know it's not. But the public perception is demand. So that is kind of a context that's building up in me. What's your response or your initial? I obviously have a knee jerk to that, but give me some nuance to that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's this idea, especially among maxis, that, well, because the supply is going to get cut in half, then that means the demand is going to double. Because if you have 10 people going to get 10 bowls of soup, and all of a sudden there's only 5 bowls of soup, well, then for each bowl of soup, you now have 10 people going for 5 bowls. Now you have 2 people per bowl, meaning the demand has doubled.
Mm-hmm.
That assumes, though, that the demand will stay consistent and not drop off, as you've said, which is totally a working assumption. And if you look at how much Bitcoin is out, and I just checked as you were talking, so I want to make sure I'm speaking about things that are as is. There's currently 19,200,000 Bitcoin have been mined. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that means there's 2.8 million Bitcoin left, and it will take up to around the year 140 for the last Bitcoin to be mined. Great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As each halving happens, less and less Bitcoin comes out as rewards to miners. Now, if you're listening and you already know all this, I'm sorry. Okay. I believe and feel that right now things are super rocky. Right now things are super shitty. And we're not going to have anyone else join into crypto over the next, 2023 into 2024. 2023 is going to be a dark time in crypto, just like 2019 was dark. And I say to anyone, I bought my crypto in 2017, saw it go up to $1 billion. 2018, it went down. And 2019, I slept on it. 2020, I came back in the game. But 2019 was a quiet year. And that's always the second year after the bull run. So the bull run was in 2021. So 2023 is going to be very quiet. I do not expect there to be a lot of adoption. It is a time for amassing undervalued coins if you're looking at it from an investment. It is a time to use some of these chains and how cheap they are to be able to build. But I do think we're going for tough times. But I think right now it's at one of its lowest points where FTX is blown up. And the last time crypto was this in the news was when it was in its bull run in November of 2021, a year ago. And it was hitting 65,000, 68,000. And anyone who was tied into crypto, like the three of us or any other people listening, you were getting calls from your grandma, your ex-girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend's lawyer. Everyone wanted to know what this thing was. 2023 is going to be quiet. We will be one of the only people out there making noise on this, AM wavelength radio we call the internet, just saying, hey, continue to look, continue to stay close. Now, getting back to your demand question, I do not think demand is going to increase, but we've seen massive amounts of people taking Bitcoin off of exchanges. And if you look at the 19.2 million that are currently mined, we know somewhere between 4 to 5 million have been lost, or they're just gone. Million Bitcoin. So you're really actually looking at around 14 to 15 to 14 to 16 million Bitcoin that are out there. And at the amount that the institutional adoption is going to just start grabbing these things up, if you own 0.1 Bitcoin, a 10% of a Bitcoin by 2030, you're going to be a special person. That's my thing. So while the demand is not going to increase before we get to the halving, which is in the spring of 2024, I do not expect to increase for all the things that you've laid out. We're just in extreme uncertainty. It's very hard to onboard. I have to go through KYC. I don't want the government to see my license or my passport or take a picture of me, even though I'll post all my pictures on Instagram when I'm on the beach with nothing on. Oh God, the government knows too much. When 2024 happens and the halving happens, and that supply gets cut in half, institutions have somebody like me sitting in their office saying, this is the schedule. This is what I'm doing with Mercy Corps right now. I'm saying we have until January of 2023 to try to really get ourselves together, because by March of January of 2024, because by March and April of 2024, after the halving, we're going to start to go, the hockey stick is going to start to go back up. And by January of 2025, you can quote me on this, tweet me, save this, write this down. Bitcoin's going to crack 100K. We're going to be off to the races again. 2025, 4 years after 2021, will be very similar to what 2021 looked like, where the shit is just going through the roof. But unlike 2021, all the institutional adoptions have all been sitting around in their C-suite. They've had somebody like one of us or anyone who's in crypto sitting there being like, you need to look at this. You need to look at this. The coins are down. The coins are down. If you believe in this, you have to back it, because when Bitcoin gets down to about $10,000, it will be, 88 to 89% down from its all-time high, which would be 69. So at that point, you're buying such a depreciated asset. Why not? You have crazy upside. Even if it just goes back to where it was at the all-time, that's crazy. What we've seen after each bull run is normally the lowest tends to be the highest of the previous bull run. Now, we're going to break that, because the highest of the last bull run was around 18, 19, and we're now sitting at 17. But the thing that I want to stress, and what I wanted to add before we end this podcast, is that the most fascinating thing about Bitcoin is that one Bitcoin's worth one Bitcoin. Now, we peg how much fiat it is, and that really gives us a when should we get in, how much should we get in. But it's been fascinating to watch. When I said it would go 8 to 12 about, I don't know, a couple months ago, I've been saying it for a while. People said, you're crazy, because it was at 26, 27. It went all the way up to 30 once and came back down. Well, now it's at 17, and now we're all comfortable at 17. And when it goes down to 14, we're going to complain about it. It'll be crazy. Everyone will text me again and say, how are you living? And then it will be comfortable. The one thing that 2020 should have taught us is that humans are exceedingly good at adapting to new environments and changes really, really quickly. So we're now comfortable at 17. To answer your demand question, I don't see it going up, but once 2024 happens, that may be your last time for at least the next couple of years until the bull quiets down in 2026, 2027. But I don't see the demand increasing. That's what I've seen. I've just seen a lot of people too who are thinking about it, kind of walking away. Now, the flip side of that is I would say, hey, you want to buy something that's down 85%? Now's your opportunity. Now's your time where you can take your time, because when you're in a bull market and the FOMO is going, you know that every week you wait, you may be losing money, but now you have more time. So we're really going to get to see patience, complacency, how it's all going to pay off, and humanity. So I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Yeah. Jay, what shout outs do you have this week, my man?
Oh, Jay, your shout outs. Jay, what shout outs you got?
What you got, Jay?
Jay, what shout outs you got? You got a shout out, Jay?
It's predictable.
Wait.
Oh, he does.
No. We'll give the audience 3 seconds to guess what Jay's shout out is.
Well, actually, wait. Before we go with the shout outs, I want to call out what Victor wrote just before we finish up, if that's cool, because he wrote the longest thing we've ever had. And just to finish our conversation about NFTs and the value in Phygital, and he says, at the Artist Collective, which is a project that he's very much a part of, I believe a co-founder.
Very cool project.
He says, we are focusing in Phygital. Your art will not lose value because of the volatility of the crypto market. We sell the original, and then he says, painting, sculpture, and more, attached to the US dollar to keep the value stable. And the NFT will be then transferred to the collector wallet. Secure transactions where artists and collectors are 100% protected, and money back or refund option is available, which you very rarely never see in NFTs, FYI. Yeah. Different payment options available. Selling physical with NFT is especially used when authenticity and verification are important to the artist and collector. If you want to show more, if you want to know more, follow the Artist Collective. I've also done a podcast on More Than Blockchain where Victor dives into the really important relationship that exists between an artist and a collector, and how their trust is even enhanced more by the authenticity when it's backed by the blockchain. And
it's attached to real art. So like this talks about NFTs that are in the realm of attribution and ownership, and ownership not only of itself, which I think we can get our heads around, but I'm telling you, the layperson still struggles to get their head around it. Wait, I own this, and this is a verification that I own the verification. Like, what are we talking about? But in Victor's case, this is kind of a bridge concept that is robust, because I own this actual sculpture and I've got an NFT to represent that. Okay, I get it. And that means that the sculpture could be in the Louvre, and you have the ownership verification and can show up anytime and claim that thing. So like it gives some options there. That's a really good one. All right.
Yeah, I think we're going back to Jay. Jay, now you can do your current shout out, because I will say, actually, no, I'll do a shout out. And then there is a podcast out that is called, let me bring it up. I believe it's called Web3. Oh, How to Build Web3 in Africa. And it is how we build Web3 in Africa. And it is by Daniel. I cannot pronounce his name. Daniel, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. Akpobare and George Masomi. Daniel's from Nigeria and George is from Kenya. And they met at a conference and they decided that they wanted to do something together. They wanted to collaborate. Well, they ended up starting this podcast. And this podcast was really, I think, inspired and pushed off the ground by Jay and his mentoring in his podcast group. Jay has worked with, I think 15 or 16 students started, and now they've launched their podcast. So I want to give a shout out to them. They're starting their content creation journey. They have been tied into all of our content creation journeys because some of them have watched the show. I've had George on my podcast. Jay's been working very closely with Daniel for the last couple of months to get his podcast off the ground. And I just think everyone should check it out. I don't have the comments up, but reach out if you want their link. I shout out to them for getting started on their journey. They've now done 2 episodes and I wish them very well.
Very cool. Jay, now what's yours?
Yeah, Jay, what's yours now?
I put some thought into my shout out. I'm shouting out Warren Buffett today.
Jay, you have the best shout outs, dude. You literally have the best shout outs.
What
today,
in the world?
Warren Buffett invested $5 billion into TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Company. And they're basically, their stock price shot up like 25% today or 20% today, just off of the back of that alone. And so that's like a signal, I think, to a large portion of the market that tech, at least like mainstream tech stocks, have sort of bottomed out. This is the worst of it. And so hopefully things start leveling off or getting a little better soon. So shout out to Warren.
I'm going to shout out today to my new clients. We've really been working hard on the website company to focus in on a niche of female business owners and business owners, including males, who are focused on coaching, training, or being a catalyst, even in a standard service company. By catalyst, we mean they're really focused on empowerment and personal development with their employees. I myself am, for those who don't know, I am a personal development coach at my core. And though I have a website company, eats up a lot of my time as my Web 2 job. I also have part of a bookkeeping company, several companies, but my passion is personal development. So I try to make the ethos and the niche for my companies be focused on that. And we've made some strides with our very small team, which I love, a boutique team, of making sure we're working with elite people focused on coaching. We just brought on the Red Tape Navigator, which is a phenomenal little brand. So we're looking at that. And I just got off the phone today with another brand that I love called House 820. They're an event venue. And they're like, let's talk about SEO. And I really appreciated them because they let me veer off and say, you don't actually need SEO. We need to tighten up your sales process, basically. And I do some sales coaching as well. So we were able to get in that. So I shout out to small business owners who are fighting for growth in what appears to be a recession. And some people just don't let that slow them down. So shout out to those people. Jarrett.
Go ahead and follow us here on LinkedIn or here on Twitter or on YouTube, wherever you are listening to us. And we're on Spotify. And we will see everyone at Saturday, which was kind of Small Business Saturday. It's kind of turned into our takes on small business and or crypto and or the world at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time. Follow us on all those at Not Crypto Bros, and we'll see you Saturday.
Have a great one. Take care.